Okay, so I will take over for the last two talks. First is by Namita from Maths. Namita, the stage is yours.
I'll be talking about product systems today, and towards the end, for a couple of minutes, I'll spend on decomposability of product systems. So, yeah, even though product systems can be defined abstractly over certain semigroups, and they do make sense on their own, but they become interesting and relevant because of their association with E0 semigroups. So I'll start by talking about E0 semigroups. So the study of E0 semigroups starts in the 1980s by Robert Powers, but a very seminal and significant contribution to this theory comes from William Arvison, and who laid the foundations of one parameter E0 semigroup theory. So here is Professor William Arvison. So he studied E0 semigroups over the semigroup of non-negative reals. So I'll be referring to this semigroup as one parameter semigroup. So whenever I say one parameter E0 semigroup or one parameter product system, I mean it's over non-negative reals. And when I say multi-parameter, keep in mind that it's over general closed convex cones. So Professor Arvison studied E0 semigroups over non-negative reals, and he introduced something called product systems, one parameter product systems, to address a natural classification question regarding E0 semigroups. And on his the foundation, the firm foundation that he laid regarding this theory continues to inspire people working in this area, including us. So what are E0 semigroups? So I'm going to define it over closed convex cones in RD. So when I say cones, the intuitive picture that comes to your mind, the ice cream cone, you can think about an infinite ice cream cone originating at the origin, or like you can think of first quadrant or first octant with the boundary or the higher dimensional analogs of that. And we also take a Hilbert space, which we assume to be infinite dimensional because that's where you have interesting things happening. And for to be on a safer side, we assume them to be separable also. So an E0 semigroups over P is just a continuous action of P on the space of on bounded linear operators on it, on the star algebra. So the action is by endomorphisms. So it's just a family alpha x indexed by the members of the semigroup. Each of these alpha x is a star endomorphism of BH, meaning that it's a homomorphism of BH, it's a map from BH to BH, which is compatible with the star algebra structure of it. It is compatible with the addition and the multiplication, which is just the composition of the operators, and also it preserves the adjoints. So it's one condition that we require these alpha x, these endomorphisms, is to preserve unit, and it's an E0 semigroup. So we require that they form a semigroup. And the next two conditions are just the certain continuity assumptions on that. So we actually consider B of H with the weak operator topology. So it's just a topology defined with defined by certain weaker notion of convergence of sequences. So just keep that in mind. So these are two continuity assumptions with respect to that operator topology. First one is just a sequential continuity condition. So, and the action I said of the semigroup P is continuous. So the last one is just that continuity condition. So basically the thing to be kept in mind is that an E0 semigroup is an action of the semigroup P on B of H. So we come to an example. So in order to define that example, we need to set some stage. So we take a non-zero Hilbert space H, and for each natural number n, we take the nth space of n Hilbert space of n tensor. We take H tensor, etc. n times. Consider H tensor n. So we consider subspace of this space of n tensors, called the symmetric n tensor. So you look at you take a xi belonging to H. You look at xi tensor, etc. xi tensor n times. So these vectors generate a subspace of H tensor n. What I mean by generate is you take their span and their span closure. So that we call the space of symmetric n tensor. So what do we do? And for the trivial case, HS tensor 0, we just take the one-dimensional Hilbert space C, and what do? We just, so there should be an HS tensor n in the direct sum. So what we do? We just put them together and take their direct sum. So the direct sum of an infinite number of Hilbert spaces is just those elements in the direct product. When you add up their norms, it has to be finite. So norm squares, it has to be finite. So a natural element to expect in this direct product is are the exponential vectors. So by the way, we call this direct sum the symmetric Fock space. Also, I think physics people call this bosonic Fock space or space of bosons or something like that. So the natural elements that we expect to be here are the exponential vectors. So it's natural to name them exponential because that's how they look like. So yeah, so they actually somehow generate the symmetric Fock space, and we define what certain important unitaries on the symmetric Fock space called the Weyl operators. So what does Weyl operator do? So you take a xi in H. So W xi, the Weyl operator corresponding to xi, actually takes E eta to E eta plus xi, and the scalar factor there, it is just to make it a unitary. It's just to adjust the norms, inner products. So it basically takes E eta to E eta plus xi. So these operator Weyl operators, they satisfy some relation called canonical commutativity relations or CCR relations, which is this. So W xi, W eta is actually a scalar multiple of W xi plus eta, and that scalar has modulus 1. So we are now ready to define our example, give our example. So to define the example, we take an isometric representation V of P on H. What is an isometric representation? It's just a semigroup homomorphism from P to BH. So just like groups, we can define homomorphisms for semigroups also. And what do we, for each x, we have a Vx in BH. That Vx, we want it to be an isometry, meaning that it preserves the distances. And because it's a representation, we want that Vx composed with Vy is Vx plus y. And we also have some continuity assumption on them, on the representation, that it's strongly continuous. So mainly, there are three topologies on BH. Weak operator topology, and there is that I earlier mentioned, and there is non-topology, and the strong topology lies in between them. So there is the continuity assumption on this representation is the one with respect to strong operator topology. So now the example is this. So once we have an isometric representation of P on H, then we get a unique E0 semigroup, which we denote by alpha V, which takes for each x, alpha x will take W xi to WV x xi. So these are the very fundamental examples of E0 semigroups that we have. And so for the physicists who know fermions, there is a E0 semigroup corresponding to that called the sea air flows, and there is something called free flows, etc. And these are the very, these are like only nice class of examples that we know. And we don't know many examples. That is also a reason why we resort to product systems to study E0 semigroups. So Yeah, this E0 semi group we call CCR flow associated to the isometric representation V. So the name basically comes from the CCR relations that wheel operators follow, and we denote it by alpha V. So just like there is isomorphism for like groups and vector spaces, and there is homeomorphism for topological spaces, there is a notion of equivalence for E0 semi groups known as cocycle conjugacy. And the natural question that we ask is whether we can what are the equivalence classes with respect to this equivalence relation. So this is the question that Arveson addressed, and like it's a natural question to address. And in that regard, we illustrate with an example, which is Wigner's theorem. So in the one parameter case, if the isometric representation that I mentioned earlier, so if the isometries actually turned out to be unitaries, meaning that if they are also onto, then we don't have anything interesting coming out of it. The E0 semi group given by it is just trivial. Each of these alpha x are equivalent to the identity operator. So now we come to product systems. That is what I'll be. That's what is the star of the show. So a product system over P is just the disjoint union of Hilbert spaces. So it's just a space E where you have a Hilbert space Ex indexed by P, and each of Ex is a non-zero Hilbert space, and E0 we require to be C, and the space actually has a multiplication on it, defined on it, and natural to expect the multiplication to be associative. And on the level of fibers, on the level of Hilbert spaces, the multiplication defines a unitary. And there is actually, this space actually has a measurable structure on it, so but I will let it take backseat for now. So this, there's no harm in writing it as, instead of disjoint union, I can write it as set Tx also just. So to give an example of a product system, so if we take an E0 semi group alpha over P, so we will define what is known as the space of intertwiner for each of these endomorphisms alpha x. This is the set of all those operators T in BH such that alpha x A T is TA for each of the operator A in BH. So what happens is that if you take x in P and take two operators S and T in Ex and look at T star S, it actually turns out to be a scalar multiple of the identity, and this scalar we define it to be the inner product of S and T, and it actually is an inner product and makes Ex a Hilbert space and separable for that matter, and E0 is C, and if you just take the composition of the operators, that actually defines product system. So the interesting point is that the association that I mentioned was the product systems are interesting because given two E0 semi groups alpha and beta, they are cocycle conjugate if and only if the product system that I defined associated to them are isomorphic. So there is a map from E0 semi groups to product systems, taking alpha to its associated product system E alpha. It's actually a bijective correspondence, which is the result given by Arveson for one parameter case and Sundar and Murugan in the multi-parameter case. So we come to decomposable product systems, which are basically product systems in which the vectors can be factorized basically. So in the one parameter theory, Arveson's result says that the CCR flows coming from isometric representations are decomposable, and Arveson's result in the one parameter theory says that these are the only examples. The only decomposable product systems are the CCR flows. So product system of a CCR flow looks like this. So each of the fiber space is just the symmetric Fock space of kernel Vx star, and and the product rule looks like E xi, E eta is E xi plus Vx eta. So we can modify this product a bit by putting a Weyl factor in the middle and a scalar in the front. So this Weyl factor, gamma XY, they are certain two co-cycles, they come from certain one cohomology, and they define when alpha and gamma are compatible enough, we get a product system E alpha gamma V. And the result that we proved recently says that these are the only examples of decomposable product systems that we can have. And the obstruction for a product system to become CCR flow is exactly that factor gamma. Just like Professor Paranjpe mentioned yesterday, it is the non-vanishing of a cohomology that prevents product system from being a CCR flow. So I will stop here.
Thank you, Namita.